Okay, good morning, everybody, or afternoon, depending on quite where you are in the world. I'm Sharon Sumner. It's absolutely lovely to meet you. For some reason, I'm ridiculously nervous about this session, and I think it's largely because all I see is my screen. I can't see you, but you can see me. So um, be gentle with me. So what I'm going to go through today is we're going to have a look at learning as a team. So this is a solution that I came up with and had a play with my 15-year-old son. And I thought I would share with everybody as a nice low-code solution of how you can get teams involved in a learning scenario. Apologies, I just hit a magic button that made me muted. That's fun. Okay. So, who am I? I'm Sharon Sumner. This is me. Hopefully, we've all met at some event or another, but if not, this is who I am. I'm the leader of the Cambridge Power Platform user group, which has now gone virtual, as I think have most things these days. So we'll be using Teams a whole bunch more, and that single point of glass is going to get really important to us. This is me. Please do link in with me and tweet at me if that's the right term. Or come along to the blog. And yes, I do always say yes to a coffee. There's always a coffee nearby. Now, that doesn't have to be in person, that can be virtual, or something a little stronger of an evening. Always happy to chat through anything Power Platform. I come from a place very much based in SharePoint and Office 365, but I'm an absolute advocate of everything Power Platform and obviously Teams. So what are we going to look at today? So we're looking at a simple solution that we've looked at that takes all of these technologies into account. So we're going to use Stream and we're going to use Microsoft Forms as a pair. And we're also going to use SharePoint Online and Power Automate. I nearly said Flow. All under the guise of the Teams umbrella. So the idea is to look at learning paths, to measure completion, to kind of shout out results or achieve a team learning goal. Now what I'm going to show you is really flexible, so you can bend and twist it to become whatever it is you want it to become, but hopefully you'll see what I'm trying to do. The solution goals then were to look at two things, and it's largely these first two. So firstly, every company has this sort of onboarding process where people need to read and understand sort of company-wide stuff, policies, health and safety, and all of that kind of stuff. And we also need to create team-specific training material on occasion. So the example I'm going to use is is a sales team that want to create some sales-specific training for Dynamics 365. Now, it's also important that we can assess the users during the training material for understanding. And that's the bit that we're really looking at today and the power behind today's solution. We're going to look at a scoring system to encourage people to take part because they get a score. And again, that's really flexible. And we're not going to delve too deep into the ways that that could branch off, but hopefully this will give you a clue as to how you could use that. We're going to look at leaderboards because everybody likes a little bit of healthy competition. But the idea is to make it simple, accessible, no code or low code, whichever terminology you prefer, Microsoft Teams-based solution. So it needs to be easily accessible by the team who we now know are going to be living in Teams. So all of these technologies under the hood come together as one seamless piece for the end user. So we're going to need to dive straight in because I've got lots of short videos of little bits and pieces that I've done that I want to show you, because if any of you have ever seen any of my sessions, I'm all about getting to business value faster. So for me, I need to show you everything that I'm doing rather than just say, believe me, it's all possible. So I'm going to walk you through this first part. We need to create a team. We need a SharePoint list or two, and we need to create a video channel, and then we've got to add some of that training material. So let's go through these steps. Hopefully you can all see this. This presentation will be available afterwards, so you can work through it at your own speed. Now, I would love to speed this up so I can talk you through it faster, but I've been told to leave it at live speed because, again, you guys will be using this afterwards to hopefully create your own solution. So, as you saw there, we already had a team created. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to jump into that team and create a new list within that team. Obviously, that gives us the permissions of that team by natural inheritance. So we're creating a list called a learning path. So a learning path needs to be made up of multiple modules. So for example, we're going to be looking at the basic sales training as a learning path, but the modules are going to be individual modules of learning within that. So what we're doing here, you don't need me to tell you everything that's going on the screen, but I wanted to show you it. So we're creating a few columns in this SharePoint list. So we have the module name, we have the score, so we've just got that as a number field. We need a video link because this is all going to be based around video learning and assessment, so we need to be able to jump out to the video. And we need to know what learning path this is part of so that we can do some data analysis later and some summarizing of the data. I always use a choice column for something like this because you don't want people to misspell it as they're typing that in multiple times. What I don't do is I don't use the title column in this particular list because as data goes into this list, we don't particularly want people to be clicking through to the items in the list. We want them to be clicking through to the video link, and only the owners of the list will probably have the ability to add a learning path. So we're not going to put anything of any importance in the title. The module name we're going to use is leads. We're going to give an arbitrary score of 50, which I'm going to use for every video. Video link, that's just a stream on. Don't worry about what that link is at the moment. But what I'm showing you here is that we need to add in a sensible link name because it shows up in the list, and I'll show you that in a bit more detail. And we're going to add it to a learning path. So let's add a second module while we're doing that. And this one's going to be around opportunities. So anybody that's familiar with Dynamics 365, there are several modules that you set up in that, leads, contacts, opportunities, accounts, etc. So these are just short videos showing you how to do that in Dynamics 365. Again, this particular one, I'm going to leave the alternate text empty and you'll see what I mean about that video link. See, that's quite ugly. It's clickable still, but it's much nicer to have the watch video link. So this is just a basic learning path list that's going to allow people to click through onto the content of the learning. So what we need to do is we need to jump over to Stream and upload our videos. So the first thing we need to do in Stream is to create a channel. Now, channels can be team specific, or the vernacular in here is group specific. So obviously there's a group behind every team. So we're going to create a D365 sale training channel, and we should be able to select the group. But as when I recorded this video, I'd only just created the team. The group in the background wasn't available to me in Office 365 yet. So we've put that as a company-wide channel. We can change those permissions a little later on. And I just picked an image there for the track. Dragging a couple of videos in to upload them. Again, not rocket science. I'm not going to explain everything that's going on the screen. But what we need to do in here is just add a little bit more detail. As you see, I'm doing 2 videos at once, adding a thumbnail and selecting a language. Now, the video language is important if the video is going to create a transcript for you. This one isn't because there's no sound on it, so it's less important. And you can see at the top here what our upload status is. So it's still initializing, updating these videos. And videos can take a little while, so I would recommend doing this bit first when you're creating your solution. As you can see here, there are various different screens within here that will allow you to see your settings, and we can grab the link early. So just by hitting that share, we know that the leads video has that particular link. So we can go back and update our learning paths list. Now, apologies if this seems like I'm going through at speed, but I've got a lot to do. Okay, whoops. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is to have a look at the assessment that we're going to make of the learning within that video. So we need to create an assessment. We need to create a scoring list to store the score once you've taken the assessment, and we need to create some Power Automate to make that storage happen. So let's just pop through those steps. So I've updated the video links, so that now goes to where the live video is going to live, but unfortunately it's still being processed. Like I say, it takes a minute. So what we'll do is we will pop over to Microsoft Forms and create the assessment. So Forms is really nice and easy. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're using Forms or Forms Pro for this. You'll get a few more features in Forms Pro, but everything I'm showing you here is available in the standard out-of-the-box Microsoft Forms. So we're going to add a new form. We're just going to call this sales training. And then we're going to add in a couple of questions. This one's specific to leads, so we'll put a subheading of leads. And then we're going to add a couple of questions. Now I can take a breath because this slows down a little bit. This is less of a fast demo. So what we need to do is add some questions in here. Now, the nice thing about forms is that you can create a form from a form. So it's not that we're going to have to reimagine this form every time. We can get a nice layout. We can use themes on here to make it look exactly as we want it to identify with our team. If we love purple backgrounds, then that can be done in here. If we have a particular image we want to put in the background, whether that's the Dynamics logo, etc., then we can add all of those things in here. So what we're doing in here is we're giving some options on a question. And I think we're just going to add in a second question rather that is just a text field. So there's multiple different types of questions you can have. There's branching logic. If you give a particular answer, it can take you to a different question type. There's an awful lot within forms, but like I say, I've not got time to teach you the basics of each of these packages within this session. So the idea behind having Microsoft Forms do the assessment is that we could, within Power Automate or a flow, we could add in some logic based on what answer was given to the questions, or we could use the branching logic in the form. Again, I'm just going to use a basic form here, and we're going to work on completion of the form to get us the score within our sales training record. So we have settings underneath here where we do need to record the name. And for this solution, we're going to put only one response per person. But I think as you'll see later in this setup, that does scupper you when you're in development. So maybe think about turning that on when you're done. We're also going to customize the thank you message because we're going to be mid-video when this assessment pops up, or we might be. So we're going to instruct the user to continue with the video. We also can hit the sharing link, as you saw a second ago, and we can grab the URL for this sales training form so that we can then use that when associating it to the video, which we still can't do because the video is still uploading. So let's jump to Microsoft Flow, Power Automate, and create a flow every time to do the work for us on adding that score. So the basic premise is they will watch the video, they will get a questionnaire, they will complete the questionnaire, and we need to record the score that was given to them by that particular questionnaire. So within Flow, we're going to look for the forms triggers, and we're going to use when a new response is submitted. Now, this feels like you would have to set this up for every form, and you do, but again, Power Automate has the ability to save a flow as, and I'll show you that at the end of this solution, how we can quickly add another learning solution or another piece of learning content. So what we're doing in here is we're going to take that response and we're going to create a SharePoint list to add a scoring record to. Now, currently we don't have that SharePoint list, so we're going to jump back to the team, go to the root of the team, so that we can add a new list easily. And we're going to add a list to keep the scoring in. Now, this is just for this local team. If you remember, my solution's looking at local team and overall sales training. So we'll cover that off in a moment. But training scores locally, every team, group, site, whichever way you want to look at it, will need its own scoring list to do this local scoring. So again, we're just going to pop in, we need to know the module, we need to know the learning path, which will just be text at this point because we're just writing it in. We need to know who what the score is and who the learner is themselves. And we'll show you some nice stuff on pulling out that learner and some challenges that it represents. So we're going to bring it in as a person field, and we're just going to call it the learner. Okay, so now we have a place to store our scores from taking the assessment. We now need to tell Flow where that lives, and it's in our sales team, and it's called Training Scores. So when we click in title, you would think that because we've got the responses, we would have the ability to add some data in here. We don't. We literally only have a list of responses. So another step is required to expand on the data that we got from Microsoft Forms. So as you can see, we're looking at sales training, But now we need to get the action from Microsoft Forms to be able to parse out those responses. So the get response details, again, looks at the sales training list of responses, and it just expands it for us, so that now when we're in create item, you'll see that we've got a bit more information in here: responders, email, submission time, etc. Now, for this particular item, we know what this form was about. So we can say that this is the basic sales training leads form. We know the module was leads, and we know that the learning path was the basic sales training. Again, we're just going to put this in as a single line of text into that list. So we can take just this part here. We know the score is going to be 50. Again, we could be looking all this up. We don't have time to look this up from the separate list at this moment, but we could have brought all of this from the learning path. And let's just have a check, make sure that that works. So we're going to test the flow. We're just going to jump up back to the form and fill it in just to test that. So we can do that in two ways. We can either use the preview button and fill it in, or we can get the sharing link, copy that, put it into another tab in the browser, and it will bring us the form. So let's just complete the form to make sure that we are in fact getting those results into the scoring lists. Okay, and as you can see, it says continue with the video now. So a little bit out of context here, but let's jump back and make sure there we have it. So the only bit that we were missing was the learner details. So let's pop back to the flow that we're editing. And in this field here called learner claims, it's very clever. So we can just pop in the respondent's email. And if we run that again with the previous data, and nip back to that list, you can see now that we've got the learner in, and that learner is the full details, the full card. So what Flow's done really nicely there for us, as you can see, this is the account that I'm logged in as, is it's from the email address, it's grabbed the kind of Active Directory, the user profile, which is really nice for this display. It causes us problems later, but we'll go through that then. So the next thing we need to do is to create a SharePoint page to bring all this together for the user, and then add that learning page into Teams. So again, we're just going to create a new page within the sales team SharePoint site. We're not going to do anything fancy. We're just going to call this a learning page. What we need on this page is the ability for the users to be able to jump easily and quickly into the training, to see how others have completed the training, and hopefully then to have a leaderboard on here. But let's first put the training scores on here and the learning paths. So we're just going to add both lists in. You can see I've had a quick play with the list in the background to sum the scores, but it still doesn't give you a leaderboard as such. And as the list grows, that's going to get quite ugly, I would think. So we're going to grab the page URL. We're going to nip back to Teams, which we have open in the browser, and we're going to add in a tab at the top. Now, a little bit of unexpected behavior here, but I've left it in the video because it's important that you can see how to get around this. So you would think if you'd clicked on SharePoint and the learning page is right there, you would be able to select that learning page and hit save, but it didn't want to do that for me. So what I do, and I think I've left it in the video, is I jump back to the page itself and just check that that page is in fact published. So let's kill that, jump back to the page. Yep, I'm quite happy that that page was published. So I'm thinking, now why isn't that in my list? Jump back here and it still hasn't updated for me to be able to add that learning page, even though it knows it exists. So what I do is, rather than giving up and coming back later, let's add this from the link and actually give it the URL of the page, and then that works perfectly. So now we have our SharePoint page within the team displaying in the Teams environment. So now our learning path is available, our users can click the video, and if it was uploaded yet, it would in fact take us directly to the learning experience. So what we've done is we've put the basic page into that Teams environment. So next we need to add the assessment to the video content, and we need to have a look at taking that assessment in line. So what we'll do, we've finally got our videos uploaded, and I've hit the publish button. So those videos are now available. We'll grab the sharing links, and I've uploaded. This one was already there. Okay, so this is a massive 47-second video just showing you how to add a new lead in Dynamics 365. So if we click over here on the interactivity, we have the ability to add a form. Now if we jump back to our form and grab the URL, we're going to pop that form in here. And this is really the magic. So you can call the form whatever you'd like. And then what we can do is we can decide where we want this form to appear in the learning experience. So you see this position on timeline. What we're going to do is move this left and right over here, and you'll see that we're picking actively the position on the timeline. Now what I like about that is you've got the exact point that the right thing is on screen for this to jump into that form. So you can see here, these are the forms that are available, and we can have as many forms as we'd like within this one piece of training, although 47 seconds with more than one form would perhaps seem a little bit of an overkill. And when we get to the 47-second point, you'll notice that it immediately jumps. So I did nothing other than watch the video. It's going to jump off to Microsoft Forms, fetch the form for me to fill in. Now this seems like it's been loading for a little while. There's a reason, and I kind of alluded to it earlier. I've already submitted my response. So in Dev, we perhaps don't want to have the setting turned on that's only one response per person. So let's just turn that off for a minute so that we can have multiple responses, and I will trigger again the video to pop up. So I don't believe, because as you can see on the right hand side here, because we've got a little viewed icon, once we've already seen it, it's not going to come up again for us. So I actually have to click on here to make the form come back up again. Which doesn't seem to have got there quite just yet. Oh, pretty sure. Oh, here we go. Okay, I must have left that in the next video. Let's just jump to that. Okay, so this is the testing of the solution. Apologies. Many videos. So we can see in here that we're going to get to 47. There we are. And the form kicks in, and this is exactly how it will look. So again, I would recommend short forms, nothing too complex, because we're in this one screen and we need to scroll. But you can see that fantastic interoperability where that assessment has jumped in to the video stream. And like I say, that could be at various different points to test the learning of that user. Now that we've taken that assessment during the video, if we pop back here, we'll see that I now have another record in the training scores list. And I've taken the same one twice, but obviously we're just in testing here. So we would see this information coming through, and we could sort this group to group by learner and try and get this sum of score to look better. But actually that's not going to work for us. So we need another solution for bringing in a dashboard for getting that engagement other than just this list of training scores. So the learning paths is working well for us. We're just not quite happy with the training scores just yet. Oops, sorry, clicked on the video. So what we need to do is we need to have a look at, firstly, how do we take that team-specific learning score and take it up a level so that we can also include all learning that's done on policies and health and safety. We're going to update the flow to allow both lists to be updated, and then we're going to look at a Power BI data set to be able to work on a leaderboard for that information. So the way we're going to do that, as you can see, I've had a bit of a play with the page in the meantime. So we've got a nice header, but we still don't have that leaderboard data. So we're going to go to a top level group that everybody's got access to. So this is our organization-wide team that we're going to use for this one. And we're going to add in another scoring list. So we've got here learning paths for organization-wide. This is just showing you some of the organization-wide learning paths. I've added that list in at the top. And you can see that I've edited the flow to update the scoring to the top level site as well. So if we look at learning scores at the top level, I'm now writing it up here as well within the same flow. So I did a parallel branch to write to both lists. There are better ways of doing this. This is just to show you very simply how you can get this solution up and running. Within Power BI, we're now going to go and get the data from the master SharePoint list. So the idea of we could go and get from lots and lots of lists within each team. But the reason that we've done that top level organization list is so that this data only has to connect to the one list. Once we've got all of the data from all of the customized team training in the one list, we can then segment it with Power BI based on learning path, modules, or where that data came from, the fact that it is custom team or whether it is organization-wide learning. So what you can see we're doing here is we're adding the top level organization-wide learning scores list to Power BI as a data source. We need to give it some credentials, so I'm just going to grab that off another screen. So eventually this learning scores list here will fill up with lots and lots of learning from generic courses and specific courses as well. So let's just authenticate Power BI. And what this does is it actually leads us to another small issue, which we'll get past. Not that one, that was just a connection issue. We'll get past that within the video. Again, I'm doing this live just to show you as we created it, rather than kind of just glossing over the things that happen once you're demoing these things. So we now have a connection to that SharePoint list as a data source, and we're bringing that data into Power BI. Takes a minute, although there's only one record, but it is setting everything up for us to be able to analyze that one record. Okay, so we have the basics here. You can see that we brought in all of the fields, including the learner. But the issue was that that learner comes in as an ID only. So it basically says 12 or a more complex GUID, but in this case, it literally says 12. So we need to find a way of being able to pass Power BI a username rather than a user object. Oops, I did it again. Oops, sorry, bad clicking. So this one. So we're going to get around the username issue, and we're going to add the leaderboard into the teams in this video. So as you can see here, we've got the learner coming in, and we've created another column called report name column. Now we called that display name and had all kinds of issues. Don't do that. That's a reserved term. But what we did was we went and updated the flow to populate in this column the actual display name of the user rather than the user as a person. So this is a standard single line of text column that we are updating from the flow. And we're doing this by adding in this one here, get user profile v2. So by adding in the action to go and get the user profile, what it does is it allows you then to have all of the details about that specific user. And you'll see that if you were to edit the flow. What we did then is we've pulled that field in. Here it is, report name column. And now we have a much better user experience within our Power BI. So we now have the right data to be able to create something lovely. Now we could, if we wanted to, bring in all kinds of fancy ways of displaying this data. We could have it as a bar chart, for example. And we just very simply just want those two fields. So if we look at the score and the report name, and again, we're looking holistically from the top level, the administrator has done more and therefore got more of a score than the test user. So now we want to bring that into the learning page to make that available in Teams. What we need to do is go to the page itself and add in the Power BI web part. So if we just edit the page and bring in, oh, we do have to publish. Forgot about that step. We do need to bring in the report itself, and we're just going to bring it in this kind of way. So we're going to just publish that to my own workspace. We'll work on permissions, etc. I'm sure we're all familiar with that, and that's kind of an entire another session. So we're going to publish that to make it available to the web part on the page. So if we now edit that page, and add in the Power BI web part. Nice little tip here, it's Power Space BI, not Power BI all as one word as you would think it is. There it is. Okay, now this web part allows us to go and grab the report. So we're just going to get our very basic report. And I forgot to get the report link, so we'll jump back, and the quickest way is just to publish it again. Tell it to replace. And then it gives you a nice little link to go to the report itself. So we can jump to that link. And then just copy that URL. And if we jump back to the page that we're editing, which isn't that one or that one, there it is, then we can add that in here. And you can see then that it's allowing us to bring the whole page in. We can add the filter pane, etc. But we're keeping this really basic. So we now have the dashboard report on our page, which of course this page is visible within Teams. So if we now jump to Teams and either refresh the page or click off, click on, we now get the report at the bottom. Okay, now we just need to make it look pretty and add in some extra functionality. Oh, I've done it again. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to, I think that's the same video. Apologies. Here we go. So we're going to have a look at the completed user experience in Teams. Now, the important part to call out on this is the data set refresh. So Power Automate has a very nice feature that can go and refresh the data set that's being used within a particular report. And this will show you the solution run through as well from a user point of view. So everything we've brought together now, we've got a really nasty looking SVG on our dashboard just to demonstrate that the administrator's got bigger, fatter books than anybody else. And we've got our learning list. So we can click on the opportunities now, which we haven't done before. We can see I've already added a form in here, and it's going to click at the end again. So we'll jump to the end, and we will take the assessment and hit submit. And this will be the user experience. They were in Teams, they've clicked through, they've done the video, and they've now taken the test. We'll continue to the video, and we'll keep using the premise that we're only using one assessment per video. If we jump back into the into Power Automate, I'm just going to jump into the one I created a copy, which I'll show you how to do in a second. We'll see that it failed. Why did it fail? Okay, it's because I republished that data set and I didn't update it in here. So you'll see it put a nasty GUID. So I just have to pick my data set again. So this refresher data set is literally looking at your published data sets. So it's really easy to use. And if we test, you'll see that that gives us a lovely little tick. So what we're doing here is every time we're adding a record, we're refreshing the data set. So this saves us having to wait a day or an hour for those data sets that are available on a standard refresh. And we should see everybody else get a little bit more minimized, and the administrator gets yet another score on the list. Okay, not really very obvious, but it was 400, it's now 450. Okay, so that's how it's going to work. So now the next natural question is, how do I then add a new learning path without that being really complex? And this is how we do it. Quick time check, we're doing okay. So the steps for carrying on adding more learning paths for each team is we need to upload a new video. Always do that first, it's going to take the longest. We need to then copy to a new form, so we need to create a new assessment form, or more than one if we're doing more than one. We need to copy the flow and amend its connections to make sure that it's writing to the correct data set and referencing the right data. And we need to add the form to the video. and then add the learning path list item so that people can click through and then test. So let's just show that. For some reason, this video has decided to stay small. So what we're doing is we are adding in the learning path item without the video first. So we're going to say this is the contacts module. So how to add a contact in Dynamics 365. Again, we're going to give an arbitrary score of 50. And we're going to add it to the basic sales training learning path. And now we just need to nip back and update that watch video link. So the video we're going to, session's expired. We're going to go back to the channel. And we're going to, in the channel itself, drag in a new video. And this one's going to be for contacts. We're going to select the language. We could set the picture, but let's not do that this time. Okay, so we've set that upload happening. We can grab the link to it. And we can pop that in here. So we now have that ready for the user to click through on as soon as that video is available. So we now need to go and grab the form and create a new form. So we can use the one that we've already done and just copy it. Creates a lovely copy for us that we can just edit the title. This one's for contacts. And we want to change the subheading for contacts. I'm not going to change much of the question because we don't really have time for me to show you all of that, but assume that we would change the context of each of the questions. We're going to grab the sharing link. Because we'll need to put that in the video. I'm going to jump to flow and create a new flow. Everything logged me out, love it. And this is done just off the list of flows that you have available to you. If we just click and do a save as, we can call it what we like. So we can put contacts on here. Probably should have changed copy of, but not to worry. We can update that anytime. And what it's doing is just creating a copy of that previous flow. It just means that all of the construct, excuse me, is in place for us within that flow. We do need to edit it, and it is important once we're done that we turn it on. So we're going to pick from a different response. And we are going to look everything up. Now, we do need to update all of these fields that I'm highlighting here. So the list of responses will now be GUID driven. We'll need updating. The responder's email, I just need to pick these fields again. So we're just doing a little bit of an update here. And we're just checking that the data set is the correct data set. And largely that's the work done. So we did need to turn it on. We do still need to update the form onto the video. So nipping back, we're still seeing a 0% upload. Okay, something dodgy with that file if it goes that long without uploading. So just refreshing that upload again under the hood means that I probably am going to hit an error on the form itself because it's going to link to the wrong URL. So we'll update that as we get there. And as you can see, this is what it looks like when it's uploading. It doesn't actually take very long at all for a small video. And so again, I wanted to just show you that live. So it does all the uploading and then it goes through a processing step. But at the point here where it's uploaded, we can publish and we can make that available. We've got the URL to it, so we can grab that and update. But what we want to do is in here, we want to update it with the form. Now that's not ready for us yet. So we have to wait for the video to finish processing, and then it looks like this when you refresh. So we have the interactivity on the right-hand side. We are then going to add in our new form, which we have in our buffer. We can use one of these titles and just change that to contacts. Amazingly, it's just the opportunity video that I copied, so we can add it to the timeline right at the end again. And we can see we've got our form added to our timeline. Nipping back to Teams on our learning page, we already have that learning path, and that link now should take us to the correct video, which it didn't because I need to update that link. So by the magic of video, let me update that link. There we go, slightly different grid. Nip back into the Teams experience. And this always opens in a new window just to keep your learning page where it was. And now when we click on this, the user will get the right experience. They will go to the video. Here is our form, which we triggered by getting to the right point in the video. We know it's the right one because it says contacts on it. So our form is beautifully linked in. We hit submit and we continue as normal. And then that takes us full circle, and back here we should now have more score on the leaderboard. And that really is the whole of the solution. So, 41, I've gone 1 minute over already. So this is just the session summary again. Hopefully I've covered everything that we intended there. Again, I've gone through this at real speed. So if anybody wants to go through this a little bit slower with me, happy to do that. And we'll put this video out on YouTube as well as the Team Fest video. So you'll be able to slow me down and actually see what it was I was doing in detail. But again, anybody wants to ask any questions or come back to me on social, you've got all my details there. Do feel free to take a snapshot of that and get in touch. And please, please, please do give feedback on the session. Let me know if you want me to speed up, slow down. It's all very, very important. Please don't feel like you can't be critical in that feedback, although it's always nice if you say good things. But it really helps us to build better sessions for you in the future.